There we go. So welcome. This is September 17th, 2021. This is Alaska version 3 meeting, and welcome everybody. I should have done a second ago. I'm going to drop the agenda notes file into the chat for you in case you don't have that handy. There it goes there. And I'm just looking at the notes I have on the meeting today. It seems like, oh, there it is, the Alaska Teen Media Institute. Okay, I did have it down here. Okay. I was doing some work yesterday on the agenda, and looks like I left it kind of halfway done, so I have to do some cleanup along the way. We have kind of two primary things I wanted to touch on today, and then we'll go around the horn as far as other agenda items and introductions. Rosie was able to join us today from the Alaska Teen Media Institute. We had two conversations last week that brought in the program that she's working with. One was in our discussion about engaging youth in the leadership opportunities and the work that we're doing, and also a discussion with Laura and the Founders Workshop Program, which is another spin-off of the work that we're doing, where the resources of the Alaska Teen Media Institute showed up as a possible resource for us to do some videography work to help promote some of the programs. So those two intersections led Laura to make an introduction between me and Rosie, and she was available today to get together. So I'm sure pleased that she's been able to join us, and Ryan has brought in Rebecca, introduced her to our program. She's with the C Lab. We talked about that last week as a potential facet of the work around arts and some art programming. So we got two great areas there to spend a little bit of time on. And I think I'll pause there and ask it. We'll kind of run around the horn as usual, asking folks to just quickly introduce yourselves, particularly because we've got a couple new folks here. Also, if you have any agenda items, let me know so I can throw those in. And as usual, anything that's popped up this week that has captured your attention about Alaska's future, our next Alaska, and something you think is important to share about that effort and the progress we're making. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm just going to kind of go the way I see folks on the screen, which puts Kitty up on top right next to me. Kitty, if you wouldn't mind jumping in. Hello.
Good morning, everyone. Great to see some new folks, some familiar folks. What's popping on my radar is I'm continuing to kind of do my fall wake up after summering, and some really neat learnings and lessons are coming through my regenerative change agent kind of program. And so it's got me thinking about this group where I really want to be a contribution towards, the evolution of us and Alaska version 3. And thinking about October, is it 23rd, Kai, that we've got a retreat scheduled for out in Girdwood?
22nd,
I'm heading up. Yep. Okay. So no, it's October 23rd. Anyway, I'm heading out to Girdwood. This is my little treehouse place. I've also, for now, reserved 2 Airbnbs that are next door to my place. So together we can sleep like 16, 18 people, depends on how many people want to bunk up there. But it'd be nice to get some RSVPs. So if I don't need to hold both of the 2 Airbnbs, I can save a little money there. But yeah, I mean, and we're in Girdwood. I've got a big old deck. I've got a fireplaces outside. We'll have room to be together and not be too close. So can spend the night and the next day enjoy hiking or something if you want. My thinking from the regenerative mindset is somewhere in the agenda today or between now and then is for us to try to start to build up from our field of insights and needs and opportunities. What are the questions that we'd like to develop our thinking on, to develop our answers? I don't view this as a traditional strategic planning retreat, not even necessarily quite strategic doing. There's lots and lots of places where that's relevant. This is the foundational pieces that really align us around our core principles and values and the development we're seeking to achieve both within the system we're working and within ourselves. So be thinking, Kai, if you can help plant it in the right agenda week, but begin to think of what questions do you want answered when we get together in Girdwood. And with that, I will pass it on. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kitty, for that. And I just want to add to that while you're maybe making some thoughts or thinking about this issue. The other piece of this is I know there's going to be some people that can't attend in Girdwood but are interested in connecting with us potentially while we're there. So the question of how we connect across distance and potentially have some hybrid opportunities is another piece of this puzzle. I'm trying to understand how to design that.
Yep, we have technology out there and some big screens. And so I think at intervals, we can do some statewide outreach and connections to both bring in concepts and then bring back out test ideas.
Thank you. Good deal. Let's see, running down the list that I made just from folks. Andy, hi.
Hello. Hello, everybody. To introduce myself to the two new folks today, I'm Andrea Andrashko. I'm a visiting instructor of business at APU right now. My focus in the fall is on healthcare management. So that's where my brain has been pulled for the last several months. However, in the spring, at least last spring, I taught entrepreneurship. This spring, I'm not quite sure. I'm supposed to teach it twice, but that might change. So I kind of fly between two worlds. And speaking of flying between two worlds, I'm flying out to North Carolina tonight. So my brain this week has just kind of been on getting stuff wrapped up for being gone for a month. So not really a whole lot to observe other than I teach a healthcare industry overview class, and I've been unpleasantly surprised by how many of my health science students are anti-vax. And that's actually been really disturbing to me. So I've been giving them assignments that are pushing them to rethink their position without being overt about it, or without me being overt about it. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm thinking about our world as it is right now with people, with the hospitals shutting down, or not shutting down, but the hospitals being overwhelmed and people still not getting it. So there you go. Sorry.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for joining us today. Ryan, what's going on today?
Hello, good morning, everyone. It's great to see your smiling faces again. Yeah, smiling, maybe not after that last, thought from Andy. It's more of a grimace for me, but we're getting there. So this has been a really interesting and inspiring week for me. I have had a pretty wide range of conversations. Yesterday, Alaska World Affairs Council hosted 2 ambassadors, and these were some Nordic ambassadors, and it was really interesting to hear the connections that they had in their own backyard to the challenges and opportunities that we have in our own. And so the opportunity for crosstalk and collaboration there is pretty large. I was behind the scenes at the event and helped to facilitate the recording of it. And so I have some of the technology pieces to help when we are doing the retreat to try and capture what it is that we're talking about and get that out into the world. The big thing that I'm getting excited about this week is soils and fertilizers. And I've been having a couple conversations with folks around kelp as a soil amendment, as a fertilizer, and where it could go, what to do with it. So I'm just excited about some of the opportunities that are out in the world. But for me, the big theme for the week has been why. Why are we doing these things? Why are we in the organizations that we're in? Why are we doing the work that we are doing? And how does that motivate us? Because I think without the why and without the values, I'm not going to be there. And I think we lose a lot of other folks too. So thanks, y'all.
Yeah, Ryan, thanks. Margot, welcome.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Margot Fliss. I work at the University of Alaska Center for Economic Development, and I co-lead a lot of our entrepreneurship programming and do ecosystem building, among other things. This week has been a whirlwind. I'm also flying out, Andy. I'm going to Savannah, Georgia, for a conference for economic developers based out of universities. I'm actually really excited about this conference. And we're going to be talking a lot about some of the same issues that we actually address in this group. So I always go, there's awards presentations. There's just so many colleagues that I often am like, I'm not on a Delta flight. No. So Alaska Airlines is a partner of the university. I know, which it's fine. They go, I think we get a big discount or something. So, but at the conference, I always gain a lot of energy. I see people from all around the US and actually some from Canada that are doing amazing work. And I always love to follow up with people and how's that going and what can I learn from others. So I'm pretty excited about that. The only other thing that I would add is, unfortunately, I cannot make the retreat. I'm so bummed. I'm going to be at a very dear friend's wedding that weekend. It's one of those that's gotten pushed 100 times from COVID. And they're finally like, line in the sand, folks. You're coming or you're not. So I will not be able to make that, but I do look forward to hearing about all that gets discussed.
Super. Thanks for joining us today, Margot. Elijah, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well. Just kind of working on some design work, designing like a sun room garden kind of thing off my building. So I'm just putting the plans together for that so I can get it done before freeze up. Definitely want to tap your brain a little, Ryan, about the fertilizer stuff, get you on that, some of this organic Korean natural farming stuff and microbes and all that. But anyway, yeah, and just kind of transition season, getting ready for skiing. Yep, got a new work away. She's turned out really nice, helping around with the dogs and stuff, so it's going well. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks for joining us today. Pasquale, how's it going?
Hello. Pretty well, actually. Pretty exciting week this week. I started to see some heavier movement from Launch Alaska Technology and the conversation that we had in the past. And at the same time, I also had some conversations with some of my friends back in Europe. Each one is in either Spain, France, or Italy. And we came back to what we've been talking about for a long time, how important energy is to shape everything, or the majority of the things that happen in one place, and specifically in Alaska. They also have different needs, but also they are related to energy and energy prices and energy disponibility and how easy it is to access or not, or what the quality of that energy. We get into a little bit more detail. Give me enough energy and we can have year-round production of fruits in Alaska, because we can warm a nice building and keep it warm. So it's pretty exciting that we go back to, we are focused, or seems the conversation goes around that, and that starts sparking a lot more ideas in my head. And also one of the projects that we had back in 2014 just came to light, because we talk also not just about energy but some other policies, and it just happened also that guy didn't abandon that project. He kept working on that project. So we talk again, and we start again bouncing some ideas back and forth. So this seems like a little, fire. Though you need a little spark, and then all of a sudden, boom! You have flames everywhere. So that's good. I'm liking to see that. That's a lot of Kindle. Do you call that?
Kindling.
Yeah. You have in some spots that you were not expected, and oh my gosh, there you have fire. Which actually there was a book that talked about entrepreneurship in Alaska, building a fire or something. Yeah.
It's a statewide science and technology development plan that has not been updated for, 15 years. It's actually on our list as potentially a project for us to lead.
Yeah. So, that was nice. It just came together pretty nicely. I was not preparing that one. So yeah, pretty good week. I'm really excited. Yeah, I'll be there in that retreat, by the way.
Thanks. Just trying to see if I quickly find the link. Yeah, the Alaska Science and Technology Innovation Research Strategy was developed by a pretty neat blue ribbon-ish kind of panel a few 10, 15 years ago. It's really strange to me that it's not been updated, given the importance of research to our university. Also, I just want to mention a connection that Pasquale's making about this energy transition. The trip that I had to Calgary got canceled, but Calgary is so fascinating, Alberta, because they are also thinking about the transition from their energy economy, their oil economy, tar sands. And they've identified that basically their tar sand oil economy is on its way out. And they're managing that process with a focus on 3 domains: new energy, health tech, and data. And they're going to build their new economy based upon those domains, moving past the extraction focus that they've had. I see a lot of parallels to what's going on there, and think we need to continue to watch what's going on in their area. So let's see, Rebecca and Rosie, I left you to last, so you kind of get a flavor of who's here and whatnot. But now, if you wouldn't mind jumping in, Rebecca, I guess first, and introduce yourself and anything that kind of captured your attention about what you learned about this group. You mentioned briefly when you jumped on that this was something that intrigued you. I was curious if you might introduce yourself and kind of share what brought you here today.
Well, hi, everyone. I know a couple of you. Thanks for the invitation, Ryan, and hi again, Rosie. My name is Rebecca Potabam. I work for the Anchorage Museum as the Public Programs and Audience Engagement Manager, which basically I have something, my hands in anything that's not nailed down to the wall, or like, this is kind of how I like to describe it, like, conferences, classes, workshops, presenters, a lot of the, the coming together and enhancing the experience of exhibitions to, a lot of the bigger overarching projects that we're involved in. And so I don't know how many of you have participated in like North by North or even our upcoming Design Week, things like that. The museum is really taking a role as, the Alaska's, largest and probably most, we're really like leaning into our role as a catalyst in the Alaskan arts community, but also just like big thinking kind of thing. But also, so we're, so these initiatives, they might not seem like as so much of a museum per se as, that institution on a hill kind of thing, but it's really about collaboration, and it's really as really just trying to like move Alaska forward and be part of that conversation, or even just instigating that conversation. And many of you may be familiar with or are familiar with the Seed Lab. While it's that was a project that the Anchorage Museum, in partnership with the municipality of Anchorage, won a Bloomberg Philanthropies grant, which was one of only 5 cities in the United States to do that that year. And so it was a large grant that allowed us to take over and lease that Seed Lab building, which is just across the street, the 6th from the museum, and has now been served as a space to really kind of bring together a lot of different types of things. SEED stands for Solutions for Energy and Equity Through Design, and so a lot of the goal of that is to really not only bring the impetus is that a lot of times things are solved when you bring unlike things together. Like maybe all of us are having conversations that spark, or kindle other, ideas or projects. Artists working with scientists actually sometimes, beget other solutions, things like that. Long story longer, what am I talking about? So Seed Lab has fulfilled the Bloomberg part of the grant that we've been working on for 2 years. And so that actually frees us up to take the next step for Seed Lab, if you will, as a museum project. And so actually, it's prime time for community influence and a lot of other things, but I am going to be stepping into managing a lot of the projects and or the space itself in a general way. And I'm really excited to see it as a hub, not only for continued conversations, but also like really trying to be this this gathering place, but also this resource for ideas and groups like this, because again, there's a lot of things to solve and we don't get there if we don't talk to each other. So I'm really excited to be involved with this group. I'm very passionate about the arts and seeing Anchorage as a thriving community. I love this place, as a chosen home. So I'm excited to be part of this. So thank you.
Okay, I guess I'll go next then, huh?
Yeah, well, it probably works if I'm going to talk to myself. Thank you, Rosie, for jumping in. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm Rosie. I'm with Alaska Teen Media Institute. And I'm here today because Laura Oden, I guess, had mentioned some work that we've done with her. And basically what we've been doing is helping with her media production for promotion of her shoe line. And so we've created some product videos when she has a new design, edited some of the content that she has to prepare it for social media and things like that. And basically Alaska Teen Media Institute can be contracted to do a wide range of media projects, videos, audio, podcasting, graphic design, all kinds of stuff like that. And that's one arm of what we do. And then another one is journalism. We have a journalism branch in our Youth Hub podcasts where they feature things that are going on in the community, things that they think other people should know about. So they're kind of meeting every week, taking a look at their lives, what's going on in Anchorage, and finding ways to share that with the rest of the community, which might be an interesting aspect for this group too, of what we do. And then the third thing we do is media skills training. So that could be of interest as well. So I can talk a little bit more about these things and hopefully just figure out if there are ways that we can collaborate with this group and enhance what you're doing, and enhance our Anchorage community. So thanks.
Wonderful, Rosie. Thanks for joining us today on that. We'll circle back on this in just a minute and try and dive into a little more detail on it. I'm excited about actually all three of those threads and some opportunities for us. So just a quick brain dump from me. I think we've covered everybody else. First off, in terms of what struck me this week, the Tuesday was just a wild ride of a day. For those of you that were watching the calendar events, we had three major innovation entrepreneurship events all happening at noon on Tuesday. And it just reflects, the energy that is out there in our community. It also reflects an opportunity to try and coordinate a little bit of what's going on. But nonetheless, we had Launch Alaska with their traction program featuring a bunch of really interesting logistics and energy related innovation projects going on around the state. We had the Invest Local meetup going on to introduce this work from Michael Schumann on the value of investing locally and investing in Alaska. And we had the All Call meeting, which is a statewide meetup of all the folks that are coordinating different innovation entrepreneurship things. So, when you wrapped your brain around those three events and the sheer impact that they have and the people that are engaged in that work, it was stunning to me. Couple other loose ends here. The startup weekend planning is moving ahead. What I wanted to share with you in particular was the theme that had been agreed upon by the organizing team. I'll put it in the chat here for the startup week, which is going to be November 8th to 12th, the theme being North to the Future, Startup, Pivot, Thrive. And I thought the theme that the group developed was a really I like it. The North to the Future is such an interesting play on what has been a long-standing theme for Alaska that connects us to the past and that original vision, as well as connecting us to the future in there. And the startup obviously is pretty clear. Pivoting is really an interesting aspect that we're trying to think about how to truly engage the existing economy in innovation and opportunities, rather than just simply talking about only entrepreneurship and innovation and forgetting the important role that the existing economy has, which really ties into the ethos of the work that we've been doing in this group, which is not to be just jumping to the future, but recognizing we want to strengthen the subsistence economies, the extraction economies, and build together. As Kitty likes to emphasize, we're talking about the and of our work as opposed to exclusions of little islands of work. I will say also a couple quick things. I'm involved with a new startup called Mighty Pipeline that is looking at taking, and this is a really big thought for those of you that can track with this, looking at taking the stranded gas on the North Slope, turning it into hydrogen fuel that can go in the Trans-Alaska Pipeline and ship it down to use it for our energy supply of blue, clean hydrogen fuel, as well as an export to the Asian markets that are desperate for hydrogen fuel as part of their decarbonization. It gives Alaska the opportunity to rapidly, completely pivot into this new hydrogen economy. And if you followed the news this week and what's going on, there's a lot of folks saying we've hit the tipping point, that the discussions about trying to avoid the tipping point are maybe those discussions are done. Now the question is, we've hit it, we're past it, now what do we do? So other than that, lots going on. Two quick announcements I wanted to pass on, and then we're going to circle back around to Rosie. Margie wanted me to pass on, and it's in the notes here, that she appreciated the folks that came to the kickoff conversation. She's still looking for folks to sign up for the local investing in Alaska's regenerative economies. And so anyone who can, help with promotion of that, that's great. She needs to get a few more folks signed up. Our group is a lead sponsor of that. That included some seats. I still have one of the seats that came with our sponsorship. That if one of you would like that, let me know, and I'll get you the registration information for that. That's supposed to start next, I think, Tuesday, and it's 4 Tuesdays. With meetups with Michael Schumann, who's a national author and somebody who's been working on these strategies. And then also there's a note in here about the decolonization training from the Native movement. I've listened to a little bit of it. It's an interesting session. There's a link in the announcements to that if you're interested in the decolonization training and the Native movement around that. Interesting material. Okay, big pause. Any questions, or I didn't hear anything else for the agenda. Otherwise, we're going to lurch forward into discussing with Rosie some more about the Alaska Teen Media and some opportunities there, and then circling back around with Ryan and Rebecca on the arts and the Seed Lab. Any other things we missed or agenda items before we jump into those? Going once, going twice. Okay, cool. Off we go then. So let's circle back around to, with Rosie. She had mentioned kind of 3 streams of activities going on with Alaska Teen Media Institute: the videography work and the opportunity to work with folks there, the journalism and the writing work that's going on there, as well as the skills training. And Rosie, just to kind of tee this up, and I kind of mentioned this before, we just want to kind of bring it back to the surface. We've been talking about a couple issues that I think intersect with this. One is bringing the creative voice to the question of what's next in our state. And we ran a writing contest this past spring, a creative writing contest, where we invited folks from around the state to submit written work around either short story, poem, or essay around this idea of what's Alaska like in 30 years, trying to get people to, with a creative mindset to think about this future. Those submissions are going to be published in the Alaska Humanities Forum magazine that's coming out sometime this month. Haven't seen it yet, but the winning submissions there will be coming out. We wanted this fall to do some sort of visual media creative contest, again, trying to elicit people to think about Alaska's future and how does that manifest itself through the arts. So there's kind of that piece of the puzzle. There's the puzzle related right now to helping us find new ways to communicate what we're working on, whether it's written or video work. And we talked about potentially some video work. Andy did a really cool short video earlier this summer as kind of a quick introduction to Alaska version 3, but I think we need to do more creating some material around the ideas we're talking about and trying to engage people in these discussions and figuring out how to, make a 10 or 100x increase in the amount of people that are thinking about the questions and engaging the projects. And then the third piece of this then being, what we could be doing to really deal with what I think is the most important question, which is how do we change the approach of engaging youth in the discussion and the leadership around what Alaska becomes, rather than youth being a token representative in efforts the gray-haired old white guys, trying to be involved in it, but actually not just a token effort, not just a, hey, this is cute, but to figure out how to actually give voice to youth and to bring them into the question of creating the future that they're going to live in. So there's kind of the creative work that could be done with the program you have. There's the work that could be done to help us get our message out in new ways and with a greater reach. And there's the broader issue of finding new ways to understand how to engage youth in this work and the leadership that they could provide to the future. So let me make a big pause and see if you've got questions about that, Rosie, or thoughts, or if anyone else wants to throw in some thoughts or clarification. It's all on the table now.
Well, those seem like some very clear connections there to what we're doing at Alaska Teen Media. We have often youth do roundtable discussions where they bring together a group of youth to kind of discuss one topic. And I could see this, Alaska 30 years from now as a great roundtable discussion topic as something the youth might like to take on. We kind of pitch these ideas when they're trying to think. They're like, what are we going to do? And, see if they pick up on them. All of the roundtable discussions and journalism content's really youth-led. So that would be something where we could kind of throw that out as a potential and see if it takes off. And then for the contract jobs, I mean, that's really, as far as making informational documentary or commercials, that can kind of be really up to the client, right? We act kind of as just a little media house, production house. And so we kind of work like any other production house where the clients come to us with an idea and we figure out what it would take for our team to pull it off and come back to them with the quote. And then if it works out and it looks good to everyone, we just start moving forward. And so that could be something that we could do for some projects too. And then as far as the creative work, I find with the particular Alaska Teen Media team, contests are hard for me to get them to latch onto. I think it's better for a school environment where they might get some credit or extra credit for entering the contest or something like that. Our team, we have a really good social justice model of paying our youth producers for their time. And so even their journalism work is, the ultimate goal is to make sure it's all paid work. And so the contests make it a little harder for our team to enter. Every once in a while, a group of youth will pick up on it though. But I have an easier time with the grants or contracts for production. for our particular team.
Yeah, Ryan.
Rosie, that's making me wonder, and this is spitballing without any sort of budget or real framework for how this could actually happen. But it's making me wonder if perhaps as we look at the creative contest and what that could look like, if perhaps a better fit for ATME could be as a documentarian, and as just sort of like capturing the process of what's coming together, the discussions that are happening, what is being created, and helping to capture and share that. If maybe that could be a better fit.
Yes, perhaps like, you know, something more like what's published in the Humanities Forum magazine, but maybe an audio or visual element that features the work, or maybe has some interviews with the winning youth or something like that. Would be kind of a really good fit for ATME. Yeah.
Cool. You know, and perhaps if somebody was so inspired, they could put together a project application, you know, a submission for something they'd like to work on. But seems like there's lots of ways to get folks engaged.
Yeah.
If someone does have a project that they are interested in ATME doing, or getting a quote from ATME to work on, how do they connect with you? How do they figure out like what y'all's portfolio looks like, or what you're capable of, and start that process?
I just put my email there in the chat. And usually it kind of starts with a conversation with me and sending you some links to similar projects, or to discuss kind of what would be needed. And then we open it up to if things are starting to roll, we're getting some of those sparks flying, then we bring some youth in to help with planning and get things going. And then our website is alaskateenmedia.org. We have just lots of work on YouTube and Vimeo, of course. Social media is all Alaska Teen Media, easy to search. Yeah, over the course of the last, the pandemic, really, we've been really picking up on our podcasting work. So you'll see a lot of that right away on social media. We've been doing just tons of good podcasting. I'm pretty impressed with the youth and what they've been able to produce. And so that will, if you go for social media, you'll probably see that stuff first. If you want to look more at the video products, you might go to YouTube or Vimeo.
Rosie, what's the time frame? I know in particular, I'm ready to basically, jump right into seeing about doing a project for the Alaska Startup Week. That week is held November 8th to 12th, with a lot of the things gearing up the week before. So, little over a month, not quite a month and a half from now to do that. And I'm wondering, is that a practical timeline for kind of project, or what kind of timeline works well with this group in terms of doing something? But that's potentially the project we talked about, bringing over to you right away through the founders work group and the support of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. There is some video that's been done before on that, but we'd like to take the new theme and blend it in with some of the ideas from this group, as well as the statewide planning group, and wondering if that's a practical project given what you've already made commitments to with other folks and this fall's availability for the teens.
Sure. I think we just have to think about what it would entail. I think something that would be interview based would be possible for sure. Something where our team could either meet in person, kind of socially distanced, or do online interviews that could promote or explain or whatever you might need to happen. That would be something that we could do by then. Something that's more creative and we need more brainstorming for, that might not be, that we might not have enough time.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, pull together some of the material that's been done before. I think what you'll find is that for the most part, the work that has been done before has been more interview type based in terms of people engaged in the ecosystem as a way to promote the event. So I think you'll find that would fit nicely.
Well, it sounds like it would be really fun and rewarding for youth too, to do projects where they can see immediate results and immediately be a part of something that's going on in the community. So
yeah. And then this other opportunity potentially for a roundtable discussion would be interesting. We did something in the springtime with some of the youth trying to explore the question of youth involvement in the next Alaska. I'd love to follow up on that and continue developing that thread to understand how to do that. It's an interesting challenge, but I don't know that we have the answer yet, but just know that it's, I think, an important voice to bring into this work.
yeah, and we have our in-house roundtables, but this is also making me think of some projects where we've done where our youth producers who are consistently hosting these roundtables and interviewing people have served as hosts or MCs for roundtable discussions for other organizations too. So that could be, if someone already has a group of youth who are working together and they want to host a discussion, then the ATME youth who have some of those technical skills and interview skills can jump in and help lead that activity or something like that.
Actually, an interesting discussion about a kind of a hybrid event that might actually create some video material also that could be used to bring out this whole issue of youth engagement in these issues and capture it in a form that might be useful for encouraging more people to get involved in that discussion.
Yeah, I could see something like that being really helpful in the build up to a request for proposal for the creative competition. Kind of like provide some theater stock to generate some ideas, get the gears turning, help people have some sort of idea of what in the heck we're talking about, and having a strong youth voice in that, I think, would be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Margot, I'm going to throw you into this. Did you have any thoughts in terms of this with regard to Upstart Alpha and some of the other projects? And I'm also thinking about, we've talked about doing some more work with the sprints and the community challenges between now and Startup Week. Is there anything that seems to connect with you in terms of how to bring in this youth video resource into some of this work?
I think it's really, really cool what you guys are doing. My husband's actually a technology teacher at Romig, and so his students are I think that's probably slightly younger version. They might be a little young to participate in some of the work that you guys do yet, but I think it's really critical to get some of them involved and excited about startups and entrepreneurship. One of our overarching goals for the Upstart Alpha Accelerator is to normalize entrepreneurship as a career path for many people of all ages, but particularly younger people who have no idea. They've seen startups in movies or what we would consider startups that have scaled really successfully and either think like, I couldn't do that, or I don't know that would be for me. So normalization of entrepreneurship and seeing all the opportunities is a big goal of ours. That being said, we keep thinking about ways that we might be able to do events, and we just are short on capacity between now and Startup Week. So I'm really excited that Rosie came, and I got to hear about what you guys are doing. So actually one of my co-leaders for Upstart Alpha is Catherine Jernstrom. And I mentioned at our staff meeting on Monday, I said, oh, I heard about this wonderful institute. I wasn't familiar with them. And Catherine said, I served on the board for such and such amount of years. They're fabulous. And I said, of course you did. But so I can't think of anything right now, Kai, but I definitely want to stay in touch and be thinking about ways that are kind of organic to include students, because as you were mentioning, Rosie, I understand that sometimes it's like they want to be the one who's excited. It's more like the entrepreneur pulling as opposed to us pushing, or maybe a little bit of a balance. Sometimes with some younger folks, I know that sometimes a little nudge is helpful, but I'm excited to hear and see what you guys are doing. But I can't think of anything right now that I could engage with. But I'm very excited that we're getting to talk to and potentially see some of the work that you guys do.
So I guess let me throw out two things, Rosie, but then I kind of want to pivot into with Rebecca and the Seed Lab. The chat, I think, brought up a key point from Kitty, is that October 23rd, our group is having a retreat in Girdwood, and that would be potentially a really good opportunity maybe to capture some interview footage at that meeting, potentially coming in, part of that afternoon to just grab some B-roll of the folks meeting. And then, at some point later in that day, as maybe some of our thoughts and ideas have crystallized, capturing some of the discussion, maybe capturing some of the thoughts of people that have been there. And so we might look specifically at that event as an opportunity to capture some role. Now, what we do with it, I think, can sit for a little bit, but capturing it would be useful, because I'm also just mindful of, I'm also going to ask you to consider putting together a proposal for the startup week, which is going on a couple of weeks after that. So potentially being able to capture some of the B-roll at that event, and then in parallel work on the other project for the startup week. I'll follow up with you on both opportunities, and we'll try and make some sense out of that. Kind of pivoting a little bit though, Rebecca, I'm curious about now the Seed Lab, the space it provides, the conversations you want to hold. It sounds like there's an intersection of activities and interests going on. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are now, both in terms of the potential role of the Seed Lab and the work you're doing with some of the work that we could be doing with AKV3 in these discussions, but also the youth opportunities with Rosie and her work and those discussions. I see a interesting stew of opportunities. I'm just wondering if you see a path or have some thoughts about all that.
Well, I will be very transparent in that right now, kind of merging into this role of being more involved in the Seed Lab stuff is very new. And I actually, we have yet to have those definitive conversations of even Julie's strategy and what she's wanting, and then what, our parameters of what I can do. Basically, as soon as I get the keys to drive, then I'm just going yeah, let's do all the things. But just so you know, at this very moment, I'm not yet up to speed of kind of what we're thinking, but I do know, just in knowing what we're all about and kind of generally speaking, we're really into this. Personally, my vision for the Seed Lab, there's a number of classrooms that we've flipped, we renovated upstairs. I've been doing even just repair workshops with the Restore, other people, or just some class series that have existed in the museum's purview that I think will shift into future thinking, or just thinking about how our lifestyles are. That's a very, very small thing, but expanding that to regular convenings there. The sky's the limit in a little bit. In a general way. That was the most vague answer ever. So I personally am very interested in seeing the Seed Lab being a hub, if you will, for this kind of discussion, and also a venue for this kind of for the events and the productions of these conversations. And I hope to be a more informed resource soon.
Ryan, I'm curious if you've had any more discussions with Oscar and thought some more about the program. I know last week we were talking about that, and you were going to try and put some thoughts to paper in terms of a plan for that. Is that developed any more, or what are your thoughts now on where that goes?
Yeah. So following some of the conversations of last week, and then at the tail end of last week's Alaska version 3 conversation, we ended up talking about a retreat, and then talking about a potential creative competition. And so that that was largely informed by my desires as a visual artist to have more outputs in the world for visual art, and the inspiration of the writing competition that we had, and seeing what a cool opportunity that was in our community. Oscar, who has had a chance to pop into some of these conversations, he is trying to get a community of creatives together, and there's just this general discussion that has been sort of mixing and baking, recognizing that the creative community is really an essential part of the entrepreneurial community, and that creative thinking is really necessary for us to solve a lot of the big early challenges that we have in our world right now. And in an effort to try and get the creative community thinking about that, we thought it could be helpful to have a call for entries or submissions of some sort. So I've started to put together a planning document for that. It's pretty loose at this point, but I'm planning to have that thing ready to share next week. But I'd like to see that be a pretty collaborative process. And the hope is that we can have a request for proposals that we can open up to the community around a central theme for what's next for Alaska. Maybe we look at North to the Future. Maybe we look at some sort of inspiration to get people to gather around the kernel, and then have the discussions around the kernel, gather a panel to review submissions, and then hopefully have a space for these artists to gather and to work on their submissions, and to actually bring their project to life. I think a key part of that would be to be able to raise a little bit of funding so that we can support these artists and recognize the legitimate work that they're doing and the importance that it adds to our ecosystem. And then once these artists have their work together, then share it. But my hope is that this can be a really open and collaborative process that we can help to both raise up and elevate some people who are doing some great thinking in our community, and encourage a lot of other thinking in our community. So that's also a pretty vague and loose answer, but at this point, we've got the big bones, and so then it is trying to get together an actual proposal for a partner to say, hey partner, are you willing to help us with some funding? Are you willing to help us with some space? Does this align with what you're doing? And so I'm looking forward to continuing to work on all that. I think a big question for us is going to be timeline for when we want to try and have this contest, or this call for entries. I don't have a clear sense of that, but I encourage all of your thoughts and support and whatever it is you want to throw at me.
Great, thanks. I did make an initial contact with Rasmussen Foundation and Alaska Community Foundation this week, just starting to jiggle the relationship with both of those groups. So nothing's developed yet, but I'm trying to get it on their radar screen and start developing the relationships. I'm wondering, Kitty, if you had learned anything more from the Alaska Venture Fund I think we talked about last week.
Yeah, I haven't reached out to them quite yet, but I'll be trying to do that within the next few weeks. And the other one, don't forget the Humanities Forum does an events-based grant. And so I think it would fit perfectly for that. My fear is that their window may have just closed. They open it every 6 months. So we need to pop back on their website and see if we've missed that deadline, because honestly, even with your rough outline, you may have enough. And honestly, even if they've missed their deadline, they may accept it since they've worked with us already.
Yeah, they're doing a quarterly thing right now.
Oh, the quarterly, good.
We've looked at it twice, and
Yeah.
I just can't handle it. The amount of administrative requirements they have, and the need for nonprofit fiduciary oversight on it, and the paperwork, it's just too much for too little.
Okay,
at this
I hadn't
point.
looked at it that close.
It works really well, I think, and it's designed for organizations that already have an events engine. They're already a well-established nonprofit, so this is just kind of a little nugget of money to do a special event for a place that already has all of the staffing, administrative, financial systems. But for somebody like us that's kind of bootstrapping it and coming together, I looked at it, just said, we're not there yet in terms of being able to take that on. You'd have to be able to absorb it into a much, and if there's anything you can do maybe with your relationships to figure out how to have another version of that that's a lighter weight version that might be appropriate for a community organization like this to take something on. But it was scary onerous for what they want.
Yeah. All right. I can look into that. They're also, when I do get a peek into Alaska Venture Fund, they also are a fiscal sponsor for certain initiatives. And I've heard, that it may be of value since we aren't and don't know that we want to be a nonprofit. That might be another option to help overcome hurdles. So research forthcoming.
Good. Okay. Thanks for looking into that. I know Margie has also offered her organization up in Fairbanks to be a fiscal sponsor if we need one.
That's
So
right.
that one's already kind of pre-approved. And then Mita has suggested, this was a discussion a couple weeks ago, the possible merger of AKV3 with her nonprofit that's already doing work. And she's got 2 or 3 of them, and I'm not even gonna say which one it is because one of them's a C3, one's a C4, and at any rate, so we're going to continue having some discussions because there's an overlap there, and I think potentially a very powerful connection into the rest of Alaska and the rural communities that the relationship with her board and organization might provide. So at any rate, we are at the witching hour. I am wondering if there's any final thoughts anybody wants to toss into this discussion we've had today about youth, arts, and what's next for the work that we're doing. Otherwise, we'll regroup next week with probably a little more of a dive in this arts as well as the retreat discussion. Anything going once, going twice?
Yeah, I, in the spirit of advancing the sort of momentum and the aim and the intention of the retreat, I might just toss together a quick Google survey. I'm thinking, because I said, what questions are we seeking to enliven and uncover? And I kind of feel like there might be 3, taking sort of the nested systems approach. It's what do we want to bring forth for the system of Alaska version 3 for us as a collaborative network, and for me individually. So each one of us as a node in the system. And so like if we said sort of what's being called for at those 3 levels, and we get people to respond to those with initial thoughts, that would be valuable to see. Is there already a good sense of alignment, or are we all over the board in terms of our aim? So would you guys be open to that?
I think it's a good idea. I can also push that out through I haven't done an email blast for a few weeks.
Okay.
So that'd be something.
And we might be able to get beyond just those who are showing up regularly. I know you've got a good 40 something group of people, but this will, not constrain us, but it will provide a little bit of, like I said, noticing if we're aligned or we're all things to all people.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you for doing that.
Okay.
Anything else going twice? Super. Well, thank you all for joining the